and welcome. I'm Laura Rogers, and this is SharePoint Power Hour. SharePoint Power Hour is a show that we do every week, every Wednesday at 11 Central, and Power Hour is about all the things that we can do with SharePoint and SharePoint Online with Office 365. Just not having to write code and not having to, be a server admin. This is all those other topics, business user, power user topics. And today's topic on Power Hour is going to be large lists and throttling. My blog is wonderlaura.com, and I just wrote a blog post, I think yesterday, sometime this week, asking you guys what our topics should be this week, or this summer actually. And I put just a long list of Power Hour, just possible topics to go over, and just to get everyone's votes. And I'm going to use those just throughout the summer, just kind of use some of the top ones. And I'm actually going to schedule out the Power Hours and put it on my blog and put a schedule out so that you'll, for the first time ever, we'll actually have a list of things that are coming up. I think I did that. I used to do that whenever we first started doing Power Hour. I was very organized about it. But I'm going to try and put a list together so there will be an agenda and when we're going to cover what. That's pretty helpful. And so you can go wonderlaura.com. It's just my most recent blog post. You can go vote. I think the poll is up for, it's running for about a week. And we have a good bit. You even have the ability to click view results to see what other people are voting on. So this concept of large lists and throttling was one that was one of the top ones that you guys had voted for. So that's what I'm going to cover today. And in case you don't know, we have a Slack channel. If you haven't been looked at Power Hour in a while, I created a Slack channel called IW Mentor, which is the name of my new SharePoint training company. And so the way I created it was that in the description of the Power Hour, I think I remembered to do it in this one, or it would be in the last. It's in the description in YouTube. It's got a link to fill out the Google form to say you want to join Power Hour, because the way Slack works is you have to be invited. So I created a little form for everyone to fill out, and then when you fill it out, it sends me a message, and then I personally invite everyone individually to Slack. So you're not going to get it instantaneously, and a lot of the times I get a lot of people filling it out during Power Hour. I can't go sit here and invite people while I'm talking, but that's kind of where everybody is. So if you guys are, hopefully you use Slack and you've installed the app is really fun. And there's a web page, there's an app, there's a computer app, there's an app for your phone, your iPhone, Windows Phone, everything. My phone is actually going nuts right now because so many people are responding on Twitter, so I'm gonna turn my phone off so that it stops beeping. All right, so I've got the Slack channel running over here, and we've got Corey here, who's going to introduce himself in a minute. So between Corey and I, we're going to be, kind of getting a heads up whenever there are questions, and talking through all your questions, and just doing what we can to chat in the little Power Hour, little hashtag Power Hour channel in Slack. So hopefully the video is running smoothly today. I got a green screen, as I might have mentioned to you guys. I bought this giant green screen that I bought, and it just takes up, because you have to get way in front of the green screen. I can even see that there's something behind me that's one of the little clips on the side of the green screen is showing over there. But you have to get way in front of it for the lighting to work. And I'm getting the lighting finally sort of figured out, and I realized why it was being so weird the last couple of times where I couldn't figure out what I was doing differently. And it was a camera setting for the webcam. So I think I got that ironed out finally. It was driving me crazy. So I got that ironed out. It's been fun kind of figuring out the whole green screen thing. I'm gonna have to get some crazy pictures to put behind me, or make it look like I'm in the Millennium Falcon flying through space or something. I don't know. But I've got my little company, IW Mentor, my little logo up in the corner for now. Corey, let me go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Who the heck are you?
As some may have heard, my name is Corey. I am also a SharePoint developer. I do a lot of the out-of-the-box stuff too, along with some administration. I like playing around with the back-end stuff as well, trying to learn some of that. That's my cat. I've been doing
Hashtag
SharePoint.
Power Hour Cat.
Yeah, I've been doing SharePoint for about 11 years, 12 years now. Yeah, just kind of, hanging out on Power Hour. Woo.
All right, and Corey and I have been on projects in the past where we had to deal with large lists and throttling and issues and kind of all the different options available for that. So we're both going to have a lot to say about that. So Corey, you know that I talk just in a continuous stream, so feel free to interrupt me at any point, or also just keep talking. I'm not going to stop.
Don't worry, I will.
Okay. All right, so hopefully you guys, hey everybody in the chat window, I see you. Enjoy Slack. It's a lot of fun. You can do, if you type a backslash, it'll give you all these little options that you can do. Like if I do backslash Giphy cat like that, then it shows like just some random GIF off the internet of a cat. So you can do, excuse me, fun stuff like that in there.
And that one's adorable.
Just feel free to chat and ask questions and just have a good time in there. It's that's why we do it live. It's fun. All right, so I had my VM turned on so that I would be able to have an on-prem SharePoint 2013 installation and settings and everything to show you while I'm doing this demo. And my VM with Google Hangouts and everything running at the same time, my computer did not like that, and it was just going nuts. So I had to go ahead and shut off my VM, and some of this we're gonna talk through in Office 365, and some of it we're going to talk about, like refer to some TechNet articles that at least show you what it looks like in on-prem with large lists. All right, so we're going to start off with just some basic concepts. And so you might have noticed, I'm not sure if you've ever gotten this situation where in any SharePoint environment you might end up with a list or library that has thousands and thousands of items in it. Like I'm talking over 5,000, 10,000 items. And once you get to that point, and you might not even realize that something different happens when you get to that point. Once you get to that point, you're going to come across some issues. Now, as far as right now today and things that are being done and changed in 2016, SharePoint 2016 and Office 365, they're working diligently to improve that and to make that not be an issue. So today I'm not going to talk about things that you're going to get in the future with 2016 and Office 365. I'm going to talk about problems that you might be experiencing today in your environments. It could be 2010, 2013, Office 365. So that's what I'm going to cover. And it seems more realistic to do that than to say, guess what you are going to look forward to. So, all right, so once you get to this limit, it's your throttling limit, then it's actually a limit that's built in it's at the web app level, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. I used to be a server admin. I haven't done that in a while, but at the web app level, you get to set a throttling limit, and that's I think the default is 5,000 items, and that means once your list or library reaches 5,000 items, then once you are trying to look at a view like the all items view that is trying to show you everything in that list or library that's more than 5,000 items, then you're going to get a little error at the top of that list or library. And users are going to get an error. Site collection admins are not, which makes it a little tricky. And users are going to get an error saying that they are not being shown the most recent set of items. And Corey's like posting links, and he's getting links together from TechNet, like kind of showing some examples of these things while we're going. That's going to tell them that they've reached their limit, and they're not seeing a list of all the items. So that's it's a big yellow error across the top of the list or library. So today we're going to talk about what to do about that and how to get around it. One thing that I've seen people do, unfortunately, this is just like a knee-jerk reaction from server admins. Y'all chime in if you've seen this happen. Is the users start complaining about the list being too large, and the admin just goes and finds the throttling settings in central admin and just increases it. They just go like bump it up to 10,000, 15,000. They're like, okay, we're good. Oh, good grief. No, that is not necessarily the best practice, right? You don't just want to have a knee-jerk reaction and increase that, because that's going to affect the performance of your server. It's going to affect the way, the performance in SQL. I'm not going to talk super technical details about what it affects, but it's not a good idea to just increase the throttling. So what I'm going to talk about today is the way that you can get around it and what your options are for dealing with your throttling limit, whatever it happens to be. So in Central Admin, your setting is going to be at your at the web app level, and it's going to be when you're looking at your list of all your web apps, web applications, and you click on one and you look at the settings. That's you go in the ribbon and you click on the settings for that one. That's where those throttling limit is going to be. So, and then the end users are going to see the error. And this is really tricky, wasn't it, Corey, when we had to deal with this, because end users were seeing the error, but we were site collection admins.
It's one of those things that you don't necessarily realize is happening until somebody complains. And then all of a sudden it's, panic reactive, just trying to fix it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Which is always fun.
So of course, one option you have is to clean up the list or library. And I actually have a blog post I wrote actually a couple of years ago about the workflow history list, and I think that this was stemmed off of something that you and I came across in an environment we were working in, where the workflow history, remember it had called it workflow history 1 or something?
Yeah, and so it was millions and millions of items.
It got huge because for some reason when we created the workflows on the site, it had created the workflow history as not the normal name of workflow history. It had put a 1 on the end of it. So I wrote a blog post about that. I don't know if one of you can go find that and post it in the chat window, but it has to do with errors in the workflow history error or issues or something to do with the workflow history. But I also addressed the large list thing in here. So that's just one type of large list. Another list that we had, just that's a common one that gets really big, is a task list. And especially so in this situation, it was a business solution that was it was a customer onboarding site where we had all these different things that needed to happen every time a customer got onboarded, and several tasks. It was probably 20 different tasks at least would get generated for every customer.
Mm-hmm. Chili Dog Daddy-O has a question that I don't think there's a good answer to.
Is there a way to get alerted if regular users are getting throttled? Oh, that's a great question.
Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Somehow you'd have to get alerted once the list reached a certain number.
Yeah.
So I don't know off the top of my head what the logic could be, because then you couldn't create a workflow on every list and library in your entire environment. So
right. I mean, the only way to really there are only two really real ways to do alerts in SharePoint. It's either a list alert, which only does changed items or the default built-in stuff, or a custom approval or a custom workflow alert. But you can't really write a workflow to check how many items are in a list.
Yeah, so this wouldn't be something that you could do as a site manager or a site collection admin or anything. If you want to receive alerts at that level, that would almost have to be something that's done at the server level. There are server alerts. So there's actually a whole console that server admins have with alerts in them. So it would have to come from there. But getting it as an email, that's a whole other story. I'm not sure. That would have to be some kind of fancy PowerShell or something extra that would have to be done, because server admins don't typically get an email alert about something happening on a server unless you've gone out of your way to do something special, right? So one option you have is to just clean it up. So in that blog post I wrote about some PowerShell that I think Todd helped me with, that just basically we just blew away the whole list, and we were able to, and it wouldn't let me delete the list because it was so large. I was getting errors everything that I tried. So the PowerShell did something either we basically deleted all the items on the list or something like that and just purged it out. So that's one option you have. Another option you have is to do something where you or moving the data or archiving the data or moving it somewhere else or deleting it on a regular basis or archiving it to maybe a SQL database on a regular basis. And those are all just extra things that you have to go out of your way to do. So if you want to actually keep that data, you have to decide where you want to keep the data. Now, if you want to keep the data in a list that, if you want to just archive it off and put it in a list that no one necessarily like needs to go to and see a list of all the items, then or just a SQL table, then you can do that. But think about some of the newer things that are coming out. So first of all, you have SQL. It's not super easy to move stuff from SharePoint to SQL, but we have this new, remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about this new Microsoft Flow. So Microsoft Flow really made me think about the way it makes it like a super intuitive interface to be able to communicate with a SQL database. That made me really think about the possibility of having a workflow, having this flow on a list that you know is going to get really big, and having just periodically move things away. Another thing that you can do if you just want to keep it cleaned up and delete things that are maybe older than 6 months or something like that, you can use an information management policy. So we did a whole other power hour about information management policies, but what you do is you go into the lister library settings, and you click information management policy, and you create what's called a retention policy, and you say when this date arrives, like created date plus 6 months or modified date plus a year or whatever it is, then do what? And you could just say do what, just delete it permanently. So that's another way you could keep it cleaned up. So those are ways that you can get the stuff out of the list. But in a lot of cases, we need to have it there. Like the users need, hey Joelle, the users need that data, and they need to be able to readily be able to go find what they're looking for and still be able to get to it and still be able to sift and sort through that large lister library. So that's usually more of sort of the situations that we see is the business saying, no, we need to keep all this, and we need to be able to sort through all of it. So then what happens is what Corey and I ended up doing for this particular situation is that what you have to do is you have to create filters and all filtered views. So you can't have an all items view of your lister library. You have to create all of your views as filtered. And so what you do is you just go to that list, and you have to know a little bit more about what the business is doing with that lister library to know what they commonly look for and what they commonly just look at in that list, and how they commonly find things, and kind of what is there a column called category? Is there a column called department? Like, what's the first thing that a user clicks on to narrow it down to see what they need to look at when they're looking at that list. So, and that's going to be different in every case, right? Hey Joelle, how are you? Thanks for coming. She's muted. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh well. Just keep trying to talk, and I'm going to keep talking until I hear you. No, I still can't hear you. We'll let you know when we can hear you. But hopefully, well, I'm gonna put Joelle on the spot and see if she has anything to say about large lists. But so what you're gonna do is on that list, you have to find out from the business what their common top filtered column is gonna be, and then you have to create all filtered views. So, for example, if we have thousands of company policies, I use company policies as an example all the time because everybody has those, right? I don't, because I have my own company now. Haha, no. So, yeah, I have a blast. Anyway, I can do whatever I want. Everybody's got company policies. So what you would do is say, all right, company policies are probably going to have a department that they're associated with. So like HR policies, etc. So this is going to be maybe what you could use. So then what you would do is create a filtered view for each different department. And then, but every time if a new department came along, you would have to know to create a new filtered view for that department. So you're going to create views just saying, create a view, say view name is HR. And then decide what columns you want in it, and just say, okay, the filter is going to be department equals HR. And then when you go create another new view, you can just use that first one you created and just go off of that one and then call the next one accounting and then say filter policy department is equal to accounting. So that's kind of the first level of what you're going to do, is decide what the users need to kind of narrow it down by, and then filter by that. And then, you know, sometimes we can, and I think, Corey, we even came across this where that wasn't even enough. Like we did a filter by HR, but there were over 5,000 HR policies. Not that that would be a good example for policies having that many, but you know what I mean? And so we had to narrow it down even further, right? Well, Joelle, I think we heard you, but I think you're just muted in the Google Hangout now. Oh, no? Maybe not.
No, I think it was just me echoing.
Oh, okay, because her face popped up, so I thought she was talking. Mine did that too, so I usually use my little Yeti microphone. That's awesome, and I don't know if I broke it between now and last week, but now I'm using the microphone in my camera, so hopefully that one's not too bad. Yay, there you are. We can hear you. Cool. So Joelle, this is Joelle Farley. Do you you know, you don't have to answer right this second, but feel free to chime in and let us know your experience with large lists and throttling.
Oh yeah, just do it. No.
Laura, you got some crazy echo.
Oh, sorry.
It might be me. I'll pause it.
Okay, cool. So it doesn't echo when I'm talking to you, Corey, but it echoes when Joelle's talking. Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's because you don't have a headset. It's coming through your speakers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we're getting a, you know,
okay. Well, I wonder if it's echoing when you're talking. So, guys in the chat room, does it echo when Corey talks? Because you and I wouldn't know that if it did. Crap.
And while they're answering, Maroon has a question. Does the number of columns in the list matter? I don't think it does, right?
No,
that's
the
a
number of
completely
columns
separate
doesn't.
issue.
No, the number of columns doesn't matter. Okay, well, I'm going to try and remember to mute myself each time you talk, just in case there's echo. Oh, she said yes. You guys, let us know. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we're getting so close to getting it perfect.
We'll get there eventually. It's hard when you don't use a headset.
So now you got to let me know when you're about to talk, so I can mute.
Yeah, although it's gone now. I don't know what you did, but now it's gone.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking about large lists now. All right.
Go for it.
I might have a demo. Okay. Okay, so then what you have to do is create all these filtered views. So, but what you have to do is not only create filtered views, but you have to index whatever column you're doing the filtering on. So that's another step. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do a demo, and I'm going to show my screen. I'm not going to have a large list here. I'm just going to have a list, but I'm going to at least be able to show you what some of these things are. All right. So here's the example of, just pretend this is, you can see my screen, right? Okay, just pretend this is a large list, and I'm going to say I want to create a filtered view for each region. So if I have, you know, thousands of these, and that's the first step, is going to be creating a filtered view. Actually, I don't think that's a very good example because that's a lookup, so I don't want to add any complexity to what I'm doing here. All right. I'm going to find one from some of these latest examples that I've done that have oh, okay. Ross said the echo only started when they could first hear Joelle. Oh, okay. So that is Joelle and not me. Cool. All right. I'm going to use this list. Okay. So I'm going to say create a view, and I'm going to say standard view, and this is in Office 365. This applies across the board, though. This right here can be done in 2010, 2013 Office 365. So I'm going to call this South, and say here's the filter that I was talking about. And text is equal to South. That
Which
was
I can't actually read because your face is in the way.
Oh well. See, there it is. Region text is equal to South. Okay. All right, and then so now we have this view called the South, and then some of the other regions that we have are, I'll just do one for the West. So then what I do when I create another new view is I can just use the South one as my template. So I started from an existing view, and I'm going to move that up so you can see it instead of trying to rearrange my face. I'm just going to call it West, and then the only thing different I have to do is region is equal to West. So it's a lot quicker to create the other filtered views once you do that. All right, so now I have my filtered views. So then the next step, and once you've hit the throttling limit, you're going to have issues trying to do this. So if you've already hit the throttling limit and you're trying to do what I'm doing right now with the indexing, you're going to get an error. So what we had to do, right, Corey, is that we had to go into Central Admin and temporarily increase the throttling limit so that we could just go turn on this indexing and then put it back down.
Right.
So I'm going to go to, you just go to the columns for whatever list you're on. You see right here, indexed columns. That's important. Okay, and then I don't have any indexed columns yet, so I'm going to create a new one. And what column do I want to index? And remember, this is going to be whatever ones that they commonly filter by in that particular situation. So I just choose region text and click create. So now I've got an indexed column. So just creating the filtered views and having people go to the filtered views is not going to be enough. They're still going to get the error. But then once I make it so that this region text column is indexed, and then they're going to the views that are filtered by that column, then the error will go away. Does that make sense? All right, let's see. Joel said this isn't the first time I killed the party. That's so funny. All right. Have you guys come across this? Any issues or questions so far? Just let me know. All right. So then another thing that we came across wasn't it in a web part, Corey, that it was still giving the error? It was like a custom data view web part. I'm going to mute myself now if you're talking. Okay, I still can't hear Corey. I don't know what happened there. You guys, I'm usually the one with all the technical difficulties. All right, so what we did was, no, still can't hear you. What we did was we had a web part, it was a custom data view web part that we had put on like a little dashboard that was just showing the filtered tasks for a certain for a certain customer that was being onboarded. And instead of showing the pretty little yellow error that you get when you go to a list that's got throttling issues, it was showing just a big, ugly, like data view web part error, like this data view web, like this item can't be shown, or just some really ugly error. So then we had to kind of dig a little bit to figure out what it was, because it wasn't obvious that that's what the issue was. So then we had to make sure that whatever filters we were applying in that web part, like whatever we were filtering by, it was like a location ID for some location for the company that was associated with this customer. It was just very specific to that solution. Then we had to go in and make sure location ID was an index column. So you might have to just keep, it's kind of high maintenance once you get to that point to keep working on it. Jeff said his screen is blurry. Is everybody's screen blurry, or is it just Jeff? I don't know. I have my resolution turned way up because that's sort of the best resolution for being able to watch this on YouTube later. But it doesn't look blurry to me, so I'm not sure about the. Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. So everybody else's side looks good, I guess. Okay. Oh, Jack said his is blurry too. And you're watching it on YouTube and it's blurry? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't look blurry to me. So yet another thing to figure out. I'll have to go watch this later and play with it and spend some time tweaking it to see why it's blurry. Has it been blurry before? Yeah, are you watching it on YouTube or on the Google Hangout? It has been blurry before. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to show you next is, remember I was talking about being able to clean up a list and be able to like kind of keep things purged. Maybe you don't need the older items. Then what you would do is you would do an information management policy to delete them. So I'll go ahead and show you where that is. I go to list settings. Jeff's watching it on YouTube. Okay. See if you can, if you watch it on the Google Hangout, if it makes a difference. That would be interesting to know. All right, then I go to Information Management Policy Settings. All right, and then I have to click on what content type I want to apply this to. So you can actually have different retention rules for different content types. Yet another awesome reason to use content types in all your solutions. Okay, so I go to click on the content type that I want to create this policy on, and see it's kind of buried in here. It's not really obvious, but you would choose Enable Retention. Yeah, the link to the Google Hangout is going to be right on top of the YouTube. It's like a yellow link. It's on the YouTube. Okay, so once I check Enable Retention, I click Add a Retention Stage, and then this is where I can define it. So I can say, so every field that you have in your list or library that is a date field is going to show here to pick from. So in this case, I don't have a bunch of date fields. I have the created date, and then I can say, you know, pretty much the last year of content in this situation is less than 5,000 items. So, and again, if your list is, people are adding items like at a crazy rate, you might have to lower this to 6 months or 3 months or something like that. But then you're going to say, when this time frame arrives, automatically do what? Move it to the recycle bin or permanently delete it, one of those things. Or some of your other options are going to be, now we did a whole power hour on information management policies, which is what we're looking at right here. But we also did a whole other power hour about this send to locations concept, transfer to another location. And so these are, a lot of these things are going to be ways that you can keep that content cleaned up. So if you have another location you're using as just an archive, you can move it there. And then another thing that you can do is, if you're super fancy and you know about web services, is that you can use your SharePoint Designer 2013 workflow, and you can use the call web service action in there. So if you have another database and you have a programmer that's written a web service that lets you interface to that database, then you actually have the ability to do a web service call and say, go ahead and you know, move this content over, you know, create an item over in the database. That entails some programming, though. That entails like having a developer and understanding how to do the syntax of that web service call. So that's a little more complex. So most of the stuff that I'm going over is going to be, you know, telling you that the complex things exist and showing you what you can do with however much level of control you have in that environment. So if I do, now when I did this, when I did Power Hour about send to locations, Joelle and Corey, see if you remember this. I think I might have said that you can't do it in Office 365, and I think that maybe at the time that was the case, but I have found it in Office 365 fairly recently, so you never know in there if it's just appeared there, if it exists now for the first time, or if it was there all along and things keep getting rearranged, so I'm not sure. But I'm going to go ahead and show you where that is, just since I didn't cover it the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and say, after created date plus 1 year, I can move it to the recycle bin and click OK. And so now I've got a retention policy on my on this particular list. So if I have a bigger, like it's sort of a bigger picture concept where I'm using this content type, maybe it's a timesheet or maybe it's tasks or something like that. I'm using this same content type in multiple places in SharePoint. I can go create the retention policy directly on the content type at the site collection level if I want to. So that way it would just apply in all the lists and libraries and you wouldn't have to go to each one to do that. I'm not full screen anymore. What? Okay, let me see. Let me check out my little XSplit broadcaster thing. Resolution 1280 by 720. Yeah, I know I'm not full screen. It's because I'm sharing this screen. I'm going to have to go look at this later and see what you guys are talking about. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, and I'm not sure why it's blurry in YouTube, so I'll have to test that, but thanks for the feedback. Oh, I need an intern for this stuff to figure it all out. Oh, they're asking to hide your faces. Well, I like this is a more interactive power hour where it's not just me doing like a full demo the whole time. So I kind of like Joelle and Corey's faces in here because we're having more of a conversation. Joelle, did you have any feedback about your experiences with large lists and throttling? Oh, she can't talk yet? Can you? No? God, sorry. Forgot your microphone doesn't work. Corey, can you talk? Can you try again? What the hell? I didn't do it. All right. I don't know. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is let's go ahead and go over to Central Admin. So I'm going to go to Admin here, and I will go ahead and minimize their faces that way. Let's see. How's that? Is that better? Okay. All right, so I'm going to Central Admin, and we're going to go to kind of where some of these different settings are going to be, and this is just in my little test Office 365 accounts. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and go to my SharePoint Admin Center down here. SharePoint. I love all the new things that they're adding and changing in here, and it's just so awesome now. It's just, and you know how they made all those announcements back on May 4th about all the new stuff in SharePoint and Office 365 and 2016 and everything? Well, they just made a whole bunch of new announcements yesterday, so check out the Office blogs. I'm going to have to start retweeting some of that stuff, but a lot of new announcements came out yesterday. So all this whole new look having to do with libraries is now the same thing is going to apply to lists as well. So that's going to be another thing that's going to be rolling out soon. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to, I believe it was under Settings. Okay, maybe I can watch this. Okay, there we go. So I just increased my browser resolution. I mean my browser zoom level. So now it's really, really big. Okay, so you have a whole bunch of options here in Settings. It's not in Settings, now remembering. It's in Apps. Crap, what was it? It was in a weird place that didn't make any sense. You think we're broadcasting at a lower definition than 720? Yeah, we'll have to look and see if Google Hangouts actually has any settings around that, because it doesn't usually give you an option as to what you're broadcasting at. So it might be the Google Hangout. I'll have to look and see if that's what the setting is. Okay. All right, so you guys, maybe I'll just have to broadcast directly with YouTube and not use this crappy Google Hangouts thing, but then I couldn't have Joelle and Corey in here. That would be much more complicated. All right, so let me go to Settings again. Do you guys experience this sometimes to where you find something in Office 365 and you say, oh, that's where that is. I was wondering where that had gone. And then you can't find it again when you look for it? Oh, that's a great question, Potterful. For an information management policy, is the content type, if the content type is a document set, does the policy also apply to the content types inside the document set? I wouldn't think so. Joelle, I don't know if you can type maybe to answer that if you've come across. I know Joelle's been using document sets a good bit more than I have, but because it uses a document content type inside of there. So I would think that that policy would only apply to the document content type. I mean, to the content type itself, which a document set is kind of like a folder, you know. So let's see. This drives me crazy. Yes. Okay, Maroon. Thank you. Yes. Next time it's not there, because I found this and I was so excited. Oh, here it is. Records management. Now that makes sense now when you think about it, because SIN 2 means you're managing records. You're defining like where you want them to be sent and setting up policies as to how they're going to get sent there, right? So it makes sense that it is records management. So now I'm going to like put my little circle here showing you guys. It's records management in SharePoint Admin Center. Yeah. All right. So that's where it is. So this is how you do it in Office 365, is by creating these new SIN 2 connections. So you say, what do I want to call it? I want to call it like an archive. And what you have to do is like kind of what we covered in the Power Hour, where I think Joelle did this one, where we talked about the SIN 2. I think both of us did this one. Is that you actually have to go turn on the content organizer feature in that site, which creates a special library called the drop-off library, and then that's where you're going to, that's the URL that you're going to use, is the SIN 2 URL. So it would know to send it to that particular drop-off library in that site where you turned on the content organizer. So then you just say what you want to do, copy, move, leave new link. So that's just another option that you have for keeping your lists cleaned up and sort of keeping them smaller. There isn't, so does any, Joelle or Corey, do you guys know off the top of your head what, I think the limit is just 5,000 for throttling in Office 365, because in on-prem, of course, there's a way that you can go change that because you have web apps and it's a web app setting. But in Office 365, you don't have an interface to do anything with web apps. You just have your site collections. So there isn't going to be like a throttling setting for a site collection. So like, see here, my site collections, I've got properties, and I've got just some information about it, and I've got owners sharing, stuff like that. This is a storage quota, but a storage quota is not the same as the throttling. So Corey, did you paste that link to the TechNet? Oh, Joelle said it should transfer the entire document set. Oh, that's a good one. We should test that, huh? Yeah. All right. Well, that's really cool if it would actually do that, if it would transfer the whole thing. Okay, so now this is where I'd like to have some of you guys' feedback. I love the question about the document set. That's a really good one, but I'm going to go ahead and switch this back over away from demo mode to full screen. All right. So now the next question is, have you guys come across large lists and libraries and had users experiencing that error, and has this been helpful, like sort of explaining and showing what the filters are and where and how to create them and how to know what to filter on, and being able to create those filtered views? Another common one that you're going to probably want to create an index on, fields that you're going to want to index are going to be those like modified and created date fields, because a lot of the times you like to have just like a default view maybe that's called recent items or recent timesheets or whatever, and have it only show just a filter of is greater than today minus 30, and that would just show the last month. So filters on dates are really easy. So that's a really common one that you could do. Just keep in mind that if you have more than 5,000 within that month or whatever, then that's where you're going to come across an issue. So the trick, so one of the problems that people have is, think about that user experience. If they're used to being able to go to that list or library and just quickly see everything and just use the column headings to filter what they want, they are going to have to be retrained, because a lot of times people don't want to do this. They just want to increase the throttling limit because they don't want to have to interrupt what the end users are doing. But for them to have to go to different views instead, that is going to be a different experience. So one thing you can do is, you can have all your filtered views and still let them go to the list and teach them about how to go to those views instead and just start from there instead of starting from all items. Another thing you can do is create a custom search experience, right? So we could have an entire giant list of 1,000, whatever it is, timesheet entries, and it's got all these thousands of timesheet entries, and what you can do is create a custom search experience for people searching just that thing, right? So we can have, especially if it's a content type, that's going to be an easy way to do it. And I wish I could get Joelle unmuted somehow. That would be awesome, because Joelle's really done a lot of this stuff. But what you're going to do is create like a custom search experience for people just searching that thing. So you could create a custom search center that it doesn't even have to be an entire search center subsite, but it can be. But you could create a custom page that does this. But a search center experience would make a search center subsite would be a great way to do it, because that's going to kind of give you all, this familiar sort of already set up little interface with all the sort of all the refiners down the left side and stuff like that. So what I can do is I can go to oh, Corey says you'll have to be careful with syntax when filtering by people fields. Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, oh, so Maroon says transfer to another SharePoint or another. You can transfer to another site collection using the send to. Yes. I don't know if one of y'all can find that old Power Hour on the SharePoint RAX channel when we used to work at Rackspace. And link it in here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create a search center for you guys. So I'm going to say, we already have a search center that's like the main search experience, and I've got 11 minutes. I'm sure I can do this. 12 minutes. All right. So I'll go ahead and create. So I'm going to go to Site Contents. I'm going to create a new search center experience just for this one particular, what is it? Brock States. No, Brock. Yeah, Brock States text. That's the one that that's the one we did our filters on. I'm going to use Brock States text as my example to have an entire, pretend it's a really large list and have an entire search experience around it. So go create a new subsite, and I'm going to call it state search or something like that. And then remember, use English words with underscores in your site names too. And then for my template, I'm going to use Enterprise Search Center, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to build out this whole thing in this session, but we also did a couple of other Power Hours on just the Search Center in general. Stephen did those. All right, so now it's creating my subsite. So then what I'm going to do, and there are several different ways you can kind of slice or dice this, is that I'm going to have to create a filtered interface inside of this search center. There are a lot of different sort of directions I could go with how it's configured. But you guys have probably seen the content search web part. We've done multiple Power Hours where we reference the content search web part too. If you've seen the content search web part, then using the search center and using the search results in there is going to be very familiar. So if you can see my screen now, I went ahead and just clicked to create a new subsite and just chose Enterprise Search Center. So now here I'm starting from scratch, and the search results is really the main thing that I'm going to be configuring. So I'm just going to type just anything right here just so I can get to the search results page on my new search center that I'm going to customize. Now, that built-in little search page that you get on a site, if you don't have a search center, you can't customize that at all. That's why search centers are the bomb. Thank you. Yes, I'm showing the screen now. I almost forgot. Okay. So then the whole time I was talking, really, it was like just creating the site. It was taking a few minutes. All right. So now this is a search page. Now my search results web part is just pretty much just like a content search web part. So this is where I would go say, what do I want this specifically to show? Now, another thing to keep in mind is that, see how it's got this everything, people, conversations, videos? You can even customize that too. So you can have, like, you could spend a good bit of time, like, making this your own, like, just for that specific solution, for that specific list, and having a whole interface around it that's just a search page for people to narrow it down. So remember how I mentioned company, like, departments for company policies, and that would be like maybe the first thing people filter by. You could even put those up here, like HR, accounting, or, you know, corporate versus, you know, it could, you wouldn't want to have too many because it would get too long, but the main top level things could be done here, and those are actually separate pages in a pages library because this is a publishing site. So that's, again, it's a whole other level, and I'm pretty sure we did it in a power hour. If we didn't, maybe we can do another one on just customizing the search center. But this is just another way that you could customize the way people get around in your environment in that one list. Okay, so I go to customize the web part, and I'm going to move my face because it's in the way now. I'll just do that and hide that thing. There we go. There's the web part. Okay. Now I'll go do my query, change my query. So I have to say, okay, what is my query? My query needs to be not just whatever word someone is typing and showing them all results from SharePoint. It needs to be that specific list, right? So what is that specific list? I have to go get the URL to it. /project. Yeah. That'll be awesome if I can finish this in 8 minutes. You know, I didn't think I had that much to talk about with large lists, but of course I'm always pushing it at the very last minute. Oh, thanks, Corey, for posting that one. Did you already post the one, the one about the send to, and the one about information management policies? Those are good ones too. All right. Okay, so here's my URL to my list. Okay, so now I'm going to say, I could switch to quick mode, but I'm going to do path. And then I don't need the all items and all that stuff. Path starts with that, and go. Oh, look at that. See, they're all my items. And I just happen to know it's path, and you've got like different other little filters and things like that. Path is probably going to be somewhere in this list, but anyway. So that's the path. Now, again, you don't have to use the path to the specific URL. If you're using a content type, you can say content type equals, and then just put whatever, you know, Contoso company policy or whatever your content type is, because it might be across your whole SharePoint environment. You might have these everywhere. So it might not just be one list. You might have a lot of large lists. But anyway, in this case, it's just one list. Okay, so then I put my path. So now this web part is just going to show the items in that list. So I go ahead and I can even pick my display templates and stuff. These are all just going to be using the generic item display template. All right, so when I click OK, there's probably going to be nothing in the results because I typed the word test as my search, you know, before I got started. Okay, so I can also do refinements. Now, for refinements, this is where it helps to plan ahead. It helps to have site columns as what you're using. So that's why, again, it helps to plan in SharePoint so that you can plan out solutions and lists and things like that before you build them, so that you'll have these as content types and site columns. Because guess what? When we go to choose refiners, the refiners let you pick from things that are site columns and that are allow them to be refined. Now this gets a little more complicated, so to make it very specific and make it have what you want in here. So what I can do is say I can remove some of the ones that are out here, like file type, content class, content. These are all going to be the same content type. I don't need that as a refiner, which are the little links down the left. I don't need web template because it's all in the same site. So I've got author, last modified time. I can do created, move it up. I can do, if I'm using tagging, it's got, like keywords. I can do tags. And so there are a lot of things that are going to be in here automatically, but there are a lot of ones that are not going to be in here automatically that you have to go through some extra steps to do. So, and you can even change what it says for each one. Like this one is called tags, and what if I wanted to say like keyword or something like that? None of these items are going to have tags, so it's not going to matter. All right. I'll go ahead and click OK. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. Yeah, I'm floating on top of my SharePoint page. Now I'll go ahead and save that. All right, so now I've got my search center, so I can type like IL, and it's going to show things that have IL in them. I'll type like North. This is very basic. You know, you'd have to spend a lot more time on this to make it be filtered down to exactly what you want, because, you know, I'm not sure why the word North is bringing up some things that aren't in the North. So that has to do more with the search itself and sort of what, you know, where it's finding that word, right? Oh, you know why it's finding those? Because I think when you go click on the item, I was thinking it might be showing those because it shows like the names of the views or something like that up at the top. Anyway, all right, so let's go back to my custom search page. All right, so then let me just give you, we've only got 3 minutes left, but I'm going to give you some background on what these are real quick. So if you go to site contents, again, the enterprise search, you have to have the publishing feature at the site collection level turned on to even be able to create an enterprise search site using that template, because it uses all these publishing features. So if I go look at pages in my search center, you'll notice that it's got its results, because that's the one I was editing, but the people results, the conversation results, those are all the separate pages that are narrowed down by people, conversations, etc. So what you do is you would create a new, and there people have written blog posts about this and everything. You create a new page that and that you're going to give it, you know, a search results page layout, and then you're going to put have all those web parts and basically filter that search results web part to only show that content type of, like in this case it was conversations or for people, etc. Another thing to know is that when I go back over to the site that my list is actually in, and I didn't create that as a site column, I actually have to go do, and I know Joelle and Corey have done this multiple times as well. I wish I could hear them. But what you have to do is you have to go into your schema, your search schema here. And it's, so I can go find like the ones called refinable string. Again, Joelle did an entire power hour about doing these custom refinable strings like this. Did I not spell it right? Refinable string. Refinable date. I'll just do refinable string. They have a whole bunch in here. So what you do, if you don't have access to the search center and central admin to do this from a central location, which you can do, you can go to search schema in your search in your central admin, in your Office 365 admin. But if you don't have that, then you have to go in here and start customizing your own refinable strings. So then I would say, all right, I need people to be able to filter by the name of that region, and I need that region to be refinable in the refiners. See, it all matches, the terminology matches. Oh, okay, it's my cousin's birthday. All right. Got all of that. All right. So what you do is you can't edit, like, it's still just going to be called refinable string, but I can make it so that it's already going to be searchable. I can make it retrievable, make it refinable, all these things. I can't edit the alias because I'm not at the root level of the site collection. Anyway, so what you're going to do is you're going to use this little sort of this interface here, and you're going to, it lets you search and find your column that you created and go include it in here. So then refinable string 00 would be region field or whatever you map it to. So I would go do this if you can, if you have control over it. First of all, create things as site columns if you can. Go to Central Admin and do this in the Search Center if you can. And then try to remember to go to the root level of the site collection. See, that's why I can't edit anything, because I'm not at the root level of the site collection. And do it from there, and do your schema from there. Or else you can't edit it. Okay? So again, we did a whole power hour. I don't have time to go into that. I've gone over by 1 minute. But I'm going to go ahead and flip back over. Just when I'm getting used to the green screen and getting that all smooth, and then we're dealing with a blurry screen in YouTube. So I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for posting those links, guys. I appreciate that. And keep in mind, SharePoint Saturday Atlanta is this weekend. Joelle and I will both be presenting there. I can't wait to see Joelle, because we are doing a 4-hour pre-conference, a half-day workshop at SP TechCon in a couple of weeks at the end of June, and we are going to be like putting that together this weekend, and so that'll be really fun getting to collaborate on that. It's going to be all about, a lot of it has to do with, some of it has to do with search, a lot of it has to do with managed metadata, so it's like managed metadata, good times and fun, and enterprise keywords and things. So that's not what it's called. But hopefully if you're in this area, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, hopefully you'll be able to head on over to SharePoint Saturday Atlanta, go register. spsevents.org is where all the SharePoint Saturdays are. And I guess over and out, and I will see you guys next week on Power Hour, and I am going to try and post what all those different topics are going to be. Thanks, everybody.